to one Fox, take one.
Welcome to the Neutral Zone Studios. This is normally the most important chair on the bridge. Tonight we're going to take you on a tour all throughout this beautiful sound stage. You will feel like you're on the Enterprise, but for tonight, this is not the most important chair on the bridge. I'm going to show you which chair that is. This is the most important chair on the bridge tonight because this is where our dear Grant Imahara, who played Sulu, sat. He probably spent a good portion of the time on screen here at the Helm Station. And we love him so much. And for those of you that don't know, he recently passed very unexpectedly and tragically. So we want to dedicate tonight's tour. Everything you're about to see, everything we share with you tonight from the studio, we want to dedicate to Grant Imahara. He is a very, very beloved member of our Star Trek Continues family. We have a wonderful tribute video that our own James Kerwin has prepared that we would like to share with you right now. So please enjoy this.
Hi everybody, this is Grant Imahara, formerly of Mythbusters and currently of Star Trek Continues. The first time setting foot on the bridge, nothing prepares you for that. That feeling of sitting at Sulu Station, at my station. I gotta thank George Takei. Because growing up as an Asian American kid, you didn't see a lot of Asian people on TV, so that had a great impact on me as a young person. And so I quickly put together a tweet, hey George, thank you for inspiring me and having a big impact on me. 5 minutes later, he tweeted back and said, Grant, thank you for continuing to inspire future generations. And I still have that on my phone. Thank you.
I'm feeling fabulous. Oh my.
I put a little extra in.
Giving it all she's got, Captain!
It's been an awesome experience. Best cast, best crew I've ever worked with, so thank you everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Captain, I give it my best ride.
To every one of them. So if you're ready, are we ready? Is everybody ready? Okay.
You're good to go.
Okay, so just like in the original series, if an actor was going to head for the doors, whether it's a turbo lift or whatever, he would say doors, and the guy working the doors would know to open them. So we're about to do that. Are you ready? Doors. Just take it in for a minute. Now, one of the beautiful things about the design of this corridor is that because it's rounded, you never see the end of the set. So not only does it go on, it seems to go on forever, which is great, but from a production standpoint, you never have to worry about seeing plywood or, or sheetrock in the corner somewhere, because from either end, you can't see the end of the set. So if you'll follow me, you're going to find all kinds of doohickeys on the walls. All of you guys that are watching, be thinking of questions. Each time we take you in a room, if you've got a question about something, put it in the messenger, and somebody's going to relay it right here to us, so you can ask us questions live, and we will answer them live. Now, the first sets you would come to on the left is Sickbay. Got a Dr. McCoy plaque up here. So you spin in here, you come in the doors, and you are in Sickbay. This was actually one of the last sets I think we built. In the first season, a lot of the walls were the standard gray color. But then when they moved into the second and third season, they started painting the walls with colors. The theory is that the cinematographer, Jerry Finnerman, would use colored light a lot to color the walls. And at some point they probably thought, why are we wasting so much gel and colored lights to color the walls? Let's just paint the walls colors. So this is where our dear Lieutenant Uhura lay when in our first episode. And this is where the amazing, legendary Mike Forrest was in Pilgrim of Eternity on this bed. And oh, we have to talk about the fabric. This fabric, we had this fabric actually woven back in the 60s. This stuff was everywhere, and they used it everywhere on the original series, but it doesn't exist anymore. And so we contacted a textile company, and we went through 5 or 6 different swatches before we got them to make it exactly right. And it is beautiful. And you'll see it everywhere. It's on chairs. It was covering the table in the Khan episode Space Seed, beds, all the time. And if you scoot back even further, you can get that classic look into this set. This is the shot you remember. And if you pan way to the left, you'll see there's another bed here. It didn't show up a lot, but they needed it occasionally. If you remember in Journey to Babel, that episode where Spock was giving blood to his dad, they were in those beds, and Kirk got stabbed and he was in this bed. Now, probably see this plexi tube. This is the cryo chamber that old Kirk was in our 8th episode of Star Trek Continues. Let's continue on. You ready? Now, I must tell you guys, in the original soundstage, this entire side of the corridor was the medical section. There was the sick bay, of course, but then there was the lab and McCoy's office. But here's the thing, if you're a big Hollywood studio, you've got all kinds of space. We didn't have that. So every square foot of space in this studio is very valuable, which means you don't build sets unless you need them. So if we're not shooting an episode where we need McCoy's lab or where we need his office, we would not take up that very important space that needs to be used for other sets. They call them swing sets, which is something that you could just put up for one episode of something and then it would be torn down. All the rest of this was standard and it was set in place all the time. Now we've got this little corridor right across from Sickbay. You will never look at the original series again. Now that you've walked through this with us, you're gonna go back and watch the original Star Trek series. You're gonna be like, I know exactly where that is. You're gonna watch him walk out of Sickbay and come across this little intersection. You're gonna know exactly how everything was laid out. Notice where this is the next room, one of the most beautiful sets on the whole studio stage. The transporter. Is that just beautiful? Can we just sit here for a while? Let's just look at this. Now, let me tell you guys, just stay right there for me, Dan. Let me tell you about this. This moire is exactly what was on the original series because as luck would have it, there are companies that still make it. These, come on up here, Dan. Dan's our cameraman. I'm going to talk to him as if he were you. Show these lenses on the floor. Now, these transporter pads that they stood on, right? What do they look like to you? Take a good look at them. Look at these concentric circles. You know what they are? They're Fresnel lenses. They're giant movie lenses. And you can imagine if you're a movie studio in Hollywood, you have plenty of these things laying around, and that's what they used for the transporter pads. Do these work? I don't know. Do they work? Ray, are they working tonight or not? Well, what would happen when you energize? Back up a little bit, Dan, so you can see the whole effect here. Is somebody doing this? So, just like in the original series, I'll give you the cue, Royal. Here's what would normally happen, you guys. What would normally happen would be they would move into position, and then they would say energize, and then they would freeze, like so. They'd walk up and they'd turn around, and Kirk would go, energize. Stand very still while the lighting department made this practical lighting move. And then they would hold. And the director would say, okay, everybody go away. And they'd all run out of the shot, and the camera would not move. And then, Royal, again, they would flash the lights again in the same sequence, in the same tempo. And then in post-production, they would simply cross-dissolve from one shot to the next, and everyone disappeared. And then the effects people would draw a little cutout around each person, and they would put that little sparkly effect in. Dan, why don't you take them around behind here? Because in addition to the platform, we've also got the transporter console that runs everything in here. And one of the most beautiful shots of this set is right here, looking over the console. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Can we just look at that? Look, is that beautiful or what? How gorgeous. Our platform, our transporter pads up there that I was talking about, those are actual resin castings of the Fresnel lens. So they are spot on accurate. Okay, let's continue. Again, with the walls. First season, they were gray. So when we shot our Mirror episode, Fairest of them all, we had to repaint this room gray. And then third season, it became purple like this. So come on out here, Dan. If you take a quick look to your right, you'll see that this is an A-frame. You recognize that from the original series. Now, normally in the original soundstage, that was where the hangar deck was. And you know what? You know what this is? You're like, it's a wall. Yes, but it was also, there were times when they would take this wall down and they would put a door here that would go into the room adjoining. And it was the chapel, I believe. And they would redress the next room we're about to see. No, we're going to take some questions first. The next room we're going to see was redressed for several different sets. But we're going to take a quick minute and we're going to show you guys a sizzle reel from Star Trek Continues. So you'll get to see some clips of what these sets look like on film when they're lit up really nice and cut together nice. Ashley's going to show you that video, and you guys prepare some questions. We are ready to take some questions about anything you've seen so far. I've already got one question from my friend Stan, and we'll start with that as soon as we get back. So Ashley, if you will roll that sizzle reel, and we'll be right back.
Apollo, all I desire is life and peace.
You expect us to...
Please don't send me back there. You have no idea what it's like.
When I'm done with you and your Starfleet, you'll be lucky to command a Gamma Scout.
I'm about to violate a direct order from Starfleet Command.
What the devil's going on, Mr. Spock?
It appears you were temporarily interchanged with counterparts from a parallel universe.
Status report.
The Andorian vessels have entered orbit, sir. They're charging weapons.
Lock onto their lead ship and fire.
Captain?
I said fire!
I am the captain's woman.
You are, aren't you?
Join me. Together we shall be the architects of our own future.
Our sister world opposes our desire to join the Federation. They will stop at nothing to prevent it.
Target acquired, Captain.
We're losing weapons, Locke.
Captain.
Fire phasers.
Why are you here? What do you want with the Captain?
Humans bury feelings of heartbreak and loss. We lock them away.
What places do you think it is?
Intelligence.
Wars on overload!
procedure is not successful, we'll lose all 3 of you.
The tissue damage is severe. Fire on the ship,
We're not. What can you do here?
We're gonna have to amputate below the knee.
Signal all decks. We've been boarded.
Who dares to hide?
Whatever these pulses are, it's making it impossible to think clearly. It's getting harder to manage the anger.
You don't belong in that uniform.
So, Commodore, to what do we owe this pleasure?
The crew of the Hood has been lost.
Enterprise, we've got a containment failure. Get us out of here!
Inaccurate. Data in error.
The computer would appear to disagree with you, Commander.
I'd prefer not to discuss the matter, sir.
Their deflector screens have activated. It's impossible to get a look. We can't bring them back.
Jim, he's you.
That's impossible. The bridge is empty. It was filled with dead crewmen the last time I was here.
Are you even a captain when you have no crew?
1 man, 2 minds.
One of those minds was tampering with the other. The moon's destabilizing, sir.
We're experiencing undertow from both singularities.
Captain, a Klingon vessel has just entered the system.
Because your world always looked like this.
It is, as it has always been.
Look at me! Look at me. Keep your eyes on me.
Doctor, when we launch that probe, the Hyalini will see in full, revealing color.
Their world is in turmoil. Technological innovation fueled solely by the desire to build more lethal weapons.
You stand here before me lecturing me about compassion. Who do you think you are?
Captain's log supplemental. I've been exhausted, but has my judgment been compromised?
Forgive the attack. The drone sensors thought you're another Romulan invader. The biosigns are almost identical.
Surrender is not the Romulan way, Captain.
We can't trust our senses, gentlemen.
When this mission is over, I will miss these times with you.
Energize.
I'm ordering you to pursue those Romulans into the zone.
Hold your fire! He's releasing ectoplasma!
Romulan weapon reaching full charge in 3, 2, 1.
Make some maneuvers. Brace for impact.
And we're back, and let's take some questions. Our first question is from my good friend Stan Dallin. Stan asks, how long did it take from the beginning of building in this construction in this building to our first episode? Well, we started building this set in February of 2012. And we shot our first episode, Pilgrim of Eternity, in January of 2013. This is South Georgia, and we didn't have a lot of money, so we don't have air conditioning. So you can only shoot down here like between October, November, and maybe March if you're lucky. So all of our sets, pretty much all of our episodes were shot during that time. Who's got it? Ray, do we have another question?
Yes. So we have George says, how much of the original plans from the original set at Paramount do you have when you built your set?
Great question, George. We have an overhead floor plan that was online, and our wonderful Matt Busey, who is our director of photography, not only is a great cinematographer, but he also happens to be like an architecture genius. He took those plans and he extrapolated all of the dimensions. Now, you may be asking, George, well, how do you know how big everything is? How do you know how wide to make things? How do you know how big a room is? Here's the thing. Just like in the original series, when you don't have a ton of money, you tend to use what already exists, right? So what is the standard sheet of plywood? If you go to Lowe's, what do you buy? 4x8. 4x8 sheet of plywood. Well, Dan, follow me. Guess what this is? It's a 4x8 sheet of plywood with these spacers on either side. As soon as you know what one particular measurement is. If it's a common measurement, a standard door or a standard sheet of plywood, you can measure everything else relative to that. So I would dare say that these sets, based on the original floor plans that we had of the Desilu soundstage, are probably within inches. And if you've seen Star Trek Continues, if you've seen any of the other fan productions that have been shot here, you see that they photograph pretty much exactly like the original series sets do as well. So, question? Who's got another question?
So, Brett, not about the set, but having seen the videos, would like to know how to get these episodes on Blu-ray.
Great question, Brett. Is that right? Brett, our Christmas gift a couple years ago to everyone, Star Trek Continues Christmas gift, was you can go to our website, StarTrekContinues.com, and right across the top, there's a download button. And you can click on that button and you can download the files in DVD or Blu-ray and burn them on Blu-ray yourself, all for free. None of this was done for profit. None of it was done for any money. It was purely done for love of Star Trek. And not only can you download the episodes, you can also download all of the artwork. I designed and laid out all of the graphics and the inserts and the disc art. You can download all of that and make your own discs right at home. So Brett, do that. Make another set. Make another set for your neighbors. Make a set for your doctor.
Videographer has a question.
Videographer has a question.
How did you find Grant Imahara and decide he was Sulu?
What a wonderful question. Let's talk about Grant. Grant and I did a convention together, Dragon Con. A lot of you are familiar with Dragon Con in Atlanta every year. Grant and Carrie from Mythbusters were there as signing guests, and I was there as a signing guest, and they asked the three of us to judge the cosplay competition. So we sat at the judges' table that night and laughed and joked and cut up and became friends. A year or two later, I saw Grant at a party, and I said, "Hey, how you doing?" And he's like, "Great, what are you up to?" And I said, "Well, funny you should ask." And I pulled out my phone and I showed him these sets, only partially built at the time, and his eyes lit up. He was like, "Oh, I love the original series of Star Trek. I was such a big fan of Sulu." And suddenly a light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, Grant would be perfect for Sulu." And he happily agreed, and he was here every time we needed him. He was wonderful in that role. Had so much fun. We'd catch him walking around the sets, just kind of being in it, just experiencing it.
Do you remember when he first sat down at his station in that black T-shirt and even oh-my'd once?
Yes. He gave a classic George Takei, oh my, when he sat down there. And I don't think anyone on our series had any more fun being a part of it than Grant did. Question?
Yes, actually, Annie has two questions.
Annie, okay.
The first question is, it says, second question's funny, but the first question is there any more of that fabric available?
Ooh, Annie, that is a great question. We made a lot of it. In fact, some of it another production bought to use in their sick bay. And we made pillows out of it and stuff like that. I don't know if there's much left. That is a Dave Arland question, actually. Dave Arland was one of our prop contributors and one of our part of our team with Star Trek Continues. And he and I went in to pay to make all the fabric, and I think he may even have some in his basement. We'll have to check on that one, Annie.
Her second question is, where did Vic get that awesome T-shirt?
Right? Okay, I'm so glad. Annie, you're my new favorite person. I made this because when I was a little kid, Dan's coming in for the close-up. When I was a little kid, I loved two things, Star Trek and Snoopy. I loved Snoopy. And when I found out Snoopy was a beagle, I had to have a beagle. So about, I don't know, a couple of months ago, I was trying to think of how I could combine Star Trek and Snoopy. So I had one of my dear fan club members, who's an amazing artist, draw a picture
of the captain's chair in the peanut style. And then we put Snoopy in it. And I have a couple of different poses, but I decided I would wear this one tonight. And I'm so glad that you like it, Annie. Thank you so much. One more question, and then we'll continue the tour.
So Alyssa asks,
hello, Alyssa.
Do the levels behind the beds move?
Ooh, good question. Let's go. Dan, let's go in there and look. Let's go back into Sickbay. Look at the levels. Come on, get close, Dan. Just scoot right up here. Now, in the original series, these lines were actually grooves that were cut in a piece of wood or backlit translucent like this. And these little arrows were on sliders, and there was somebody behind this wall actually moving those sliders up and down. And they had to know exactly what the script was calling for, right? They needed to know, is one higher than the other, or do they all go flat, which means the person has died? What do they need to be doing? However, we don't have to worry about that, because now in the age of CGI, we can take a still shot of that, and then we send it off to one of our CGI people who makes those move up and down. Great question, great question. I must tell you also, as you back up here, Dan, and see these beautiful viewers, our dear Ralph Miller, who was our sound supervisor, is also an amazing builder of props and things like this. And Ralph built these, and they do all the cool stuff. And they're at each of these beds, and Ralph did a lot. He built a lot of stuff for our sets. As you're strolling, all the bridge chairs, I sat on them. I sat on them as he power buzzsawed off the backs. All of the chairs, all of the Star Trek chairs were actually, again, if you don't have a lot of money, what do? You use existing things. Those chairs were called Burke. They were made by a company called Burke chairs. They were just standard little kind of slopey, modern looking chairs in the late 60s. And so that's the chair that they used on Star Trek, but they gave them their own Star Trek twist. They made leather backs and leather seat cushions. They painted them that pretty blue. And then they even put these little triangles on the back, and we'll see those very soon. Let's keep going with the tour, okay? So we came in and we went to Sickbay. We went to the transporter room, and the next set you would come to would be the briefing room. Take a look around. Now, remember when we were out in the hallway, I told you about this wall? They would replace this and put a door entrance here, and this room would be redressed to be other sets, like the chapel in Balance of Terror, or the rec room. This room was doubled as the rec room. They would take the big briefing room table out, and they would put the little tables around. They put the food processor on the wall. They put games and cards and cups all over the tables, and this became a rec room. And in fact, we used this set as the briefing room and the rec room for Pilgrim of Eternity, our very first episode. This is where Mike Forrest stood right here and regaled everyone with his story and became younger as he was feeding off of their admiration for him. Now let's talk about this table. If you look at each one of these stations, you can see that there's a row of these rocker switches. They're everywhere. And you'll see them everywhere around the ship. They're on the bridge at every station. They're on Kirk's captain's chair. They're in engineering. They're everywhere. They're in aux control. Okay, back in the late 60s, these things were everywhere. I mean, they were regular, just rocker switches that turn things on and off. But nowadays, they're not as easy to find. They're pretty hard to find. Well, if you're going to recreate the Enterprise, you got to have a lot of them, right? So what we decided to do, don't get scared. Don't get scared. What we decided to do was, here, let's use this one. I think this is the one. We resin cast these rocker switches, and then we painted them different colors, and then you put them in place, and they look exactly like the real rocker switches. The only thing is they don't move. But here's the beauty, the magic of movie making. If you're looking at me, let's say I'm dressed as a character and I walk up and I go, Kirk here. And our sound guy puts a little click sound. You just assume I pressed that button. You never saw it go down. So these didn't actually have to be functional. And they would have cost a lot to try to find all those rocker switches. Another bit of movie magic, the tape slot. It looks like a tape slot, but it's just a piece of tape. It's literally a piece of black electrician's tape. And we probably, if we had an episode where somebody had to put a tape in there, we would have cut the hole and made it functional. But why cut holes in your table if you don't need to? So just for visual purposes, it looks just fine. I should tell you also, come on down here, Dan. Let me tell them about this wall behind us. You remember how I mentioned that on most sound stages, any set you walk into is going to have one wall missing because they shoot into the set. Now, all four walls like this, you could never get the camera far enough away to see the whole room. This is as far as you could go. And you can't get far enough back to see the grandeur of these sloping beams and the whole table and everybody sitting here. That's why this wall would never be here. This wall is what they call a wild wall, which means it can be taken off and moved out of the way immediately so you can shoot into the set from here. The only reason you would need that wall would be if the camera was shooting that way and somebody was standing here talking and you'd need a background behind them. But normally, one of the walls in every set would be missing. Often it would be the back wall in the transporter room. I'll show you what the other wild walls will be in the other sets, okay? So let's head back out. We absolutely cannot pass this hexagonal mesh without talking about it. Okay, you'll see this all over the Enterprise. And this is one of the few things, like the moire translucent pieces in the transporter room. This is one of the few pieces that still exists from the original series. And you know why? Because once again, if you don't have a big budget, you have to use what already exists. They put this all over the Enterprise because it looked kind of futuristic, right? With the hexagonal shape. But what it actually is, it's structural support for big cement pourings. So if you're building big walls and you need extra structure to hold the cement solid, they would put these giant, this is solid steel, and it's very heavy. And the company that made these in the 60s still makes it, and it's still used for the same purpose. And we found them, and we bought it to have in the studio. Now I have to tell you about the ladder in here. Come on in. This is just a little alcove in the corridor right by the briefing room, and when you watch Star Trek again, you'll see it. I have to tell you about this ladder. We were getting ready to shoot Pilgrim of Eternity. I came down a couple of days early just to make sure everything was done, and I was like, ah! There's no yellow ladder in this alcove. We know there's supposed to be a yellow ladder here. So my friends and I, Royal and Sam, we all ran to Lowe's and I bought some broomsticks. And I cut them together and screwed them all together. And we put it in here and painted it yellow. And you know what? It worked. Oh, Royal, you are an evil man. Back the camera up, Dan. Yep. Here it is in all its glory. So this is the one that I threw together. And when you go back and watch Pilgrim of Eternity, it looks fine. It looks exactly, pan over there and show them the actual ladder. They look basically the same. The only difference is you can actually climb that one. We had a sign on this ladder. We put a piece of paper that said, do not climb, because it's nothing but dowel rods. Okay, let's keep going. You're going to see a lot of these things on the wall. They're all over the place. And you're probably thinking, what are they? Great question. Who really knows? Some of them you can recognize as things. A lot of times in the original series, again, no budget. no great amount of money, so use what you can find. They would take styrofoam packing that they would send out typewriters and stuff in, mimeograph machines, and they just put them up, stuck them on the wall. They painted them a certain color, glued a couple of buttons on, done. Because here's the thing, guys, and I forgot to say this earlier. The reason you make the sets accurate is so you can forget them. The whole purpose of Star Trek was to tell a story. It wasn't to focus on the sets. It was to tell a story. The sets only serve as a backdrop. And when we created Star Trek Continues, we made the sets as accurate as we could so that you could see them and then accept that you are on the Enterprise and then give us permission to tell you a story. Therefore, only for the purpose of suspending your disbelief. If things didn't look right, you'd never be able to let go and enjoy the story because you'd be like, oh, that's wrong, and that doesn't seem right, that doesn't look right, that's not supposed to be there. So we tried to make it as good as we could so that you would say, oh my goodness, I'm on the Enterprise. Tell me a story. Now, a lot of these plantons, we just call them plantons because name follows function. You plant them on the wall. And the funny thing is, you will see the same plantons all over the original series of Star Trek because they would just make one and hang it here. And then if they're going to shoot over there, they'll take it off the wall and they'll put it over there. It was just to dress the background. My dear friend Jeff Johnson made this. It just was meant to look like the original. One set that was the crew quarters. And when it was Kirk's quarters, it was dressed to be Captain Kirk's quarters. When it was Spock's quarters, it was dressed to be Spock's quarters. When it was Uhura's quarters, it was redressed. They would take the table and put it somewhere else, and they'd move the bed over here, and they'd hang curtains around here. Where in Spock's cabin, they would put different things on the wall and different trinkets and pieces on this desk. Again, that wall would never be here. If you roll back in here, Dan, go ahead back in the other room, in the bedroom. And this wall would never be here. Because if you want to shoot a master shot of this room, come on down here, Dan, and just spin around and let them see. Down here is where you have the best vantage point of the entire room. Now, when Dan stops on this orange wall piece, fun story here. This is not a very big set, clearly. So what if you want to get a shot of somebody coming in the door and you can't get the camera far enough away because the wall's here to get the person in the door? These are camera ports. We always wondered why there were these boards and just miscellaneous things hanging and sitting around the room at very interestingly positioned places. And what we realized was they would cut a hole in the wall so that they could shoot in a certain direction and then just cover it. Notice the sickbay fabric. This was in Kirk's quarters. Over there, look, camera port. So you could shoot back this way. Over here, uh-oh, what if somebody's walking in that door and you want to shoot them? Camera port again. More of the movie magic of being able to adapt the set for your film needs. All right, let's head out. Now, if you remember, I told you guys that the other side of the corridor was all medical back in the original series. But we didn't need some of those sets, so we didn't build them. We needed them for other things, like auxiliary control. We built this set. Just let them sit and look at it. We built this set for our third episode. Yeah, give them a nice pan. There's a door over there, and there's a weird plant on the wall. What is that? Who really knows?
Styrofoam.
Yeah, and look, more hex mesh. The stuff's everywhere. Now, we built this set for our third episode, our mirror episode, Fairest of Them All, and then it appeared again in our final episode. when the ship separated, and Kirk and our beloved Sulu sat right there, and they ran the saucer section from the, the drive section from Aux control. Now, if you've seen our series, swing around here if you would, Dan. If you've seen Star Trek Continues, you know that there was a scene in episode 7 where they went to a star base and Spock and Kirk talked with Commodore Gray. This was repurposed as Commodore Gray's office. This was behind her desk. The desk was here. All of this was gone. There was a wall here with windows and a green screen behind the windows. So it looked like Starbase outside the windows. And then it was repurposed again. In our 11th episode, this was Admiral Nagura's office. If you remember, Kirk was sitting here at this desk. Admiral Nagura was there, and Admiral Nagura gestured to the wall behind him that had the shelf with all the ships on it. And that was right here. We literally just repurposed this area for several different sets. Now, if you swing this way, this is where Kirk fought. This is where Kirk fought Zamenhof in our 2nd episode. In fact, Zamenhof was right about here, and I was over here, and I came running and gave him the classic double Kirk kick. This was Lolani's quarters. Now, clearly, there was not a Romulan control center in Lolani's quarters at the time. It's just here for people to see, but this was all dressed to be Lolani's quarters. You know what else this set was used for? In our 4th episode, when Colin Baker, who played the Chalcidian Chancellor, was being gifted, when Kirk and Scotty and Uhura were gifting him the deflector screen for their planet, Kirk got hit over the head. This set was repurposed for that. We put curtains all around. We put tile down on the floor so that it didn't look like the same gray carpet on the Enterprise. And we did exactly what the original series did.
And you want to talk cheap?
Repurposed.
All of those rubber tiles were here when we got this building. So you painted a geometric pattern in the middle.
Yes, they were 12-inch 12 by 12 blocks of these tiles. And so we laid them down. They were like a dark slate color. And we laid them down on the floor. And then I thought, oh my gosh, let's paint some of them a different color and create some cool pattern on the floor. Again, no money, so just do with what you have. And that's probably one of the most fun things of all. Okay, we're heading back out into the corridor. Now, remember I told you about that plan-on that my friend Jeff made. Well, I made this one, and I'm nowhere near as good as he is.
Before you even explain this,
we
have a question.
Oh, okay, here.
And it leads right to this.
Oh my goodness, good.
Desi says, I'd like to ask, what's the strangest item you've ever used to make something for the ship, like a prop or decoration or whatever?
Desi! You know what? That list is probably very long. There are probably a lot. You know what? Let's use this for instance. Go back and watch the original series, Desi. You will see this plant-on in the background in the corridor. When we shot our very first vignette, it was a continuation of the final episode of Star Trek, Turnabout Intruder. And when we recreated that last minute, this plant-on was in the background. So we had to have it. Now, we had no idea. We didn't have any close-ups of it. We had no idea what it looked like. We just knew it was a bunch of yellow doohickeys on a light blue doohickey. So I sound like Sam, Rockwell in Galaxy Quest. There's a red thingy moving toward the green thingy. I think we're the green thingy. Okay, you ready, Desi? Now back up, Dan. From 10 feet away, go back. Keep going. Now, keep going. Okay, now let's say we're actually shooting an episode, guys. And you're shooting me. Is that behind me?
I want to get it in frame. There we go.
Get it kind of at an angle here.
Okay.
So, but focus on me as if you're shooting a scene and I'm standing here talking to something. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, it's just over my shoulder. What is it? You don't know. And more importantly, you don't care. Because what's happening here is most important. The story that we're telling is most important. So let's go in close now and see what this really is. Desi, This is a baby paint tray. It's a little tiny paint tray. This is an electrical outlet. This is a wheel from an office chair.
Which we were still using, Vic.
I don't think we were using it, man. I found it on the floor and I used it. It was not connected to a chair. This is a little, another plumbing piece. These are just pieces of wood. Look, it's just a 1x1 piece of wood that I cut other little pieces and glued them on, and took all this stuff, stuck it together in some random pattern. And I knew from the original set, from the pictures, there was something like this here, and there was something like this here, but we didn't know exactly what it was, and it didn't matter. So I made this one. It's nowhere near as good as Jeff's, but a lot of them, there's one around the corner here that's made out of plumbing PVC pieces from Lowe's. Let's go look at that one. Here, swing around here. Oh no, oh here. I thought it was right there. Look here, get over here so you can kind of look straight on. Now this looks very much like one that was in the original show. If you go back and watch the original series, you'll see something like this in the background. What was it? I don't know. And it doesn't matter because we just kind of approximated the look of it. These are all different sizes of PVC piping that we bought and cut in half and made this. It's one of my cheap ones again. Now, let's look this way. This is not, I didn't make, this is awesome. Somebody else made this, and it looks very much exactly like what was in the original series. And you see we're at the end of the corridor here. Here's the turbo lift. Now, is the turbo lift completely closed in? Of course not. Because if you want to shoot a scene in the elevator, where would the camera go? So there would be one section that was left out. So like if, Dan, are you able to maneuver in here and point back at me? Go back toward the ladder there. So now, look, it looks like you're in the elevator. It looks like you're in the turbo lift with someone and they're working the controls. So again, the movie magic, there was always a big portion missing that would allow the production crew to shoot into the set. Now, we're about to, oh no, we've got something special. That's right. Okay, Dan, you ready to roll quick? Everybody,
yes.
we're gonna take you on a ride to the other end, because before you come here, Dan, before you pick up speed, this door right here, everybody, you see the sign over that door? It says engineering. Go ahead, right in there. This was in the original soundstage, this door led to engineering. But we don't have the kind of space that the Desolu studio had, so we weren't able to put engineering right there.
Well, you put a little bit of it once with the green screen.
Just a little bit. Yeah, we built just the inside area and then we green screened the rest. But when we were graciously given enough to build engineering, which by the way had never been done at that point, no fan production had ever been able to build engineering. It's pretty enormous. Oh, before we go, let's look at the Jeffries tube.
That's engineering-ish.
Yes, kind of. Yes, it is. The famous Jeffries tube. Get in close and try to look up. Now, what's cool, you guys, is that these steps that go up are functional. You can actually climb right up in there, just like Scotty would do. And we built a camera platform up at the top. So you shoot down into the tube and you can get those classic shots. Now, remember I told you when we were over by the A-frame at the transporter room, I told you that would normally have been the hangar deck. This is the second A-frame that's in the original soundstage, and this is what we made our hangar deck because we had space here to do it. And if you remember Lolani in our second episode, Kenway and Lolani, the Orion slave girl, come running around this corner, and Kenway runs up once again, Ralph Miller creation, the pressurization panel. And then these doors would open. Can you get in close?
It lights up.
Oh yes.
And those light up too.
We'll let you know when the door's pressurized. And a cool thing about this door, notice the same pattern, that film strip pattern that's in the transporter room. Again, use what you have. There are two doors here actually. There's the blue one and there's a gray one behind it because this is a pressurization door, right? Goes out to the hangar deck. They thought of everything. Okay.
We have one question while you're here.
Okay.
Denise, writes, did you put on tubes or pipes? GNDN.
Yes! There it is. Look. Now, somebody in the chat room is probably, somebody on the live stream is probably saying, what is GNDN? See that? You know what that stands for? Goes nowhere, does nothing. They would put that around because, again, it's not supposed to be showcased. It's just backdrop. It's just background for the storytelling. So and by the way, Ralph Miller, again, our sound guy, did a lot of the detailing of this. These red ones are actually stable so that you can climb up in there using them.
The tube is a concrete pipe
Yes.
tube skinned in veneer and
Yes.
then laboriously worked so that we could get it smooth. Ralph and I painted every one of those and striped every one of those pipes.
Yep. And yeah, you wonder, where would you get a giant cylinder like that? Well, when they make big pillars out of cement, they need a form. It's called a sonotube. And we ordered one that was 12 feet long and about probably 4 feet wide. And here's the funny thing though, you guys, it's made of cardboard because it's not meant to last. It's meant to pour cement in and then you tear it off. So if we were to go behind it, which we're not, you would see wooden framework where we built a frame around it so that it would not, misshape and kind of flatten out eventually. Okay, any other question? We'll take one more question.
Actually, since we're here, Stephen writes, which room doubled as the brig?
You know what? No room doubled as the brig. There was a brig. Come on up here. And it was right here. This is the brig. Oh, let me also say, you guys, you're going to go in and out of dark areas. That's because it's not lit right now to shoot something on. If we were going to shoot an episode, here, I'll pretend I'm in the brig. If we were going to shoot an episode, you would only have to light the room that you're shooting in, right? So everything else would be turned off and dark, and whatever sets you're on, you would be lighting. So we've spread out the lights that we had as best we could, and you'll find some dark areas. If it comes down to lighting the transporter room or lighting the brig, we're going to go with the transporter room. But this worked out beautifully for our studio, for our episodes. This was the brig. These things were on this wall. I found.
I think they're coasters.
Yeah, they're like glass coasters, and I found them somewhere to store and painted them, and that's exactly what's on the original.
A bear to glue on the wall because they're so heavy.
Yeah,
they would slide.
Yes, yes. Okay, you ready? Are we ready to take?
Ready.
Now you're going to walk down the corridor as if you're a crewman, and we're going to head down to the other end because there's something very special at the other end. I'll just let you walk down the corridor.
Hey, Vic.
Walk the Enterprise. Now, as I said, we weren't able to build engineering at the other end where it normally would be because the way we had to lay out the building wouldn't allow us to do that. So we built it down here, and here it is. Oh, tilt up, Dan.
Oh, yes.
Look at this. Look at the ceiling. Yeah, go in and tilt up. Look at this, you guys. Now, this is Scotty Station. You just spin around here. Yep. This is a little alcove inside the engineering room. In fact, this is what Dan was talking about. We built this down there so that until we were able to build the whole set, we built this right inside down there. So for a while, it was kind of engineering. But then our dear Will Smith told me he was watching, not the Will Smith from Independence Day, but even better. William Smith is one of the most amazing Star Trek prop set geniuses. He drew up the plans to this set, and we built this set with your generous kindness and support. And if you look straight forward, you see the warp core. Oh my gosh. It looks like it's 50 feet long, doesn't it?
Uh-huh.
But it's 12 feet. Come take a look. This alcove. Hey, look, that's actually it. Here it is again. 3 3 big giant panels of hex metal. But if you look closely here, you see that it's only really 12 feet long, and each of these pipes gets smaller and smaller, and each of the letters on each of them and the numbers get smaller and smaller, and the tubes up on the top get smaller and smaller, and even those lights in the ceiling get smaller and smaller. So it creates the illusion of it being much deeper. If you come around here, I'm going to tell you what a super nerd Will Smith is. Will Smith, we hired a guy in town, a welder, to build these stairs. And we wanted them to work, right? And they do. They're completely functional. So he built these railings, and by the way, he built the yellow ladder that's now in the corridor. But he built this, and after he did, he delivered it one day, and we brought it in here. We were so excited to put it up. And we put it up, and Will said, wait a minute, this isn't right. It's like, this is supposed to be rounded, and the steps aren't the right. And we called the guy, and we said, look, we don't want to be jerks or anything, but it needs to be exactly like the drawings we gave you. This guy built them again. Are there no steps around here?
Right around the corner, sir.
The other set of steps is around the corner, but here's the best part of the story. We went out to lunch, and when we came back, the second set of steps was laying outside the building. We couldn't even reach the guy that built them. I think he didn't like us anymore after we made him build it twice. But he also built the tri-ladder that's in the cylinder down at the end.
You know these steps very well. You took a flying leap off them with a phaser rifle, a stunt rifle.
Oh, yes.
That was built overnight.
Yes, and we had a nice little fight right here. A lot of things happened. Now, if you spin around, you'll see a wall over there. Once again, this wall was not here when we shot our series, and it would not normally be here at all, because you want to shoot in to this set, and you want to get far enough away, and you can see the majesty of the set. If there were a wall here, you wouldn't be able to get far enough away to do that. So after we finished our series, the owner of the building wanted to rent the other side of the building to someone, ironically, who makes egg rolls. I like egg rolls, but you know, it was sad to see. Oh, also on the other side, over here, we're actually in the other half of the building right now. It's where we built engineering. It's where our production offices were, whether it was makeup or wardrobe or our lunch area or props. We're all over here. And the other thing was over here was our planet set. You see it in episode 9, and you see it redressed for episode 10. And it was on the other side there in the largest area we had left to build it. Once we finished our series, you know, there's no money coming in to make anything or do anything because we're done. So we couldn't keep doing it, and we let the other half of the building go. But we did ask the egg roll guy if he would please let us keep engineering because it was so beautiful. And he did, although he wanted that space. So he put up this wall. It was not here when we shot. And on the other side of this wall was where John Delancey's council chamber was built in episode 9. Or it was the courtroom from episode 7, where Spock and the woman commander were vying for command of the ship, of this starship. Now, we came across something in this room. I want you, Dan, to just kind of float around, start with the ceiling, and then float around and let them see all these pieces. We had the greatest stroke of luck. We wanted to build this ceiling. It's huge, these big arches. The problem is, we started to try to build it with wood and plywood, and it weighed 1 million pounds. And we thought, okay, first of all, it's going to be a nightmare to build it right. And then it's going to be a bigger nightmare to sling it up and suspend it from the ceiling. And then it's going to be an even bigger nightmare when it falls and crushes somebody. While we were trying to think of what to do, our dear Royal Weaver, one of our main builders and caretakers down here in Kingsland said, hey, there's a guy in Jacksonville who he cuts foam with a computer controlled machine. You can send him any file and he can cut it out of foam. And we thought, oh my gosh, this is a cool thing. So now tilt down. So that by the way, this ceiling, you and I could lift this.
I lifted some of those pieces up to
It weighs virtually nothing and it looks perfect. We got it from the guy. He brought it on in a flatbed truck and then we painted it and strung it up. It's perfect. It weighs nothing. If it fell, it'd probably just break over your head. As soon as we realized you could do that, we thought, oh my gosh, look at these pieces up here. What are all these plan-ons? Instead of making something that looks like what was on the original series, Will Smith drafted exactly what was. Come over here. We kind of call this the snake head. It kind of reminds me of the War of the Worlds Martian ship head. And that, he cut that for us. What is it? We don't know. But we sent him a drawing and he built and he cut it out of foam. And then I made the little frame around it. And then if you pan right over here, what are these things? Probably packing materials back in late 60s, but this is exactly what they looked like. And as soon as we realized that we could have him make anything, look here. See these domes? Like you would think it wouldn't be really hard to find a dome like this until you actually go look for one. And then you can find trash can lids or something, but they don't look exactly like it. He made these. Oh, by the way, these cool these cool spheres, they were in the original series. There's a fun story on in one of the books where the stage crew got so mad at Shatner because Shatner would pull these balls out and kick them around. He didn't like that much. And as luck would have it, again, you don't have a lot of money, you use what you can find. It's a ball.
It's a soccer ball.
It's a six. Yes.
Look at the
It's a little kid's ball, and we spray painted it, put it in there, done. Nobody would ever know the difference. Which is probably what they did with the silicone knife in Devil in the Dark. All those.
Exactly.
Okay, are you ready? Yes. Let's take a couple questions before we head back down for the big enchilada.
All right. So we have Gav.
I'm gonna get some cool back.
We have Gav from Ireland.
Oh my goodness.
Who said, if you had to remake a set from scratch, is there anything you would change or different? You may want to wait till we get to the end, but that's a Gav question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I can tell you what we would do differently. I'll tell you right now. That's a great question. Gav?
Gav.
What a great question, Gav. I'm going to tell you. When Matt Busey and I were deciding what color to paint the walls, 80% of this set is gray, right? It's an aircraft kind of a gray. Well, who really knows what shade of gray it was? Not many, because those walls, the actual walls don't exist anymore. Well, when you put light on an actor, the light goes past the actor and it hits the wall behind him. So if they were light colored walls, then the light on the actor would make the wall just blow out too bright and it would take focus away from the actor. So Matt and I decided on the right color. We went to Lowe's, we picked the gray we thought was perfect. It's everywhere. It's called Gravity, ironically. And we painted all of our gray things with Gravity. As we were finishing our series, our dear Will Smith, same guy I mentioned earlier, was asked to go up to the Seattle Sci-Fi Museum and restore the original helm navigation console. The deal, the real deal. It was in a crate in the basement, and they wanted to put it out on display, I think probably for the 50th. And so they asked our own beloved Will Smith, because he's a genius, to come up and restore it to exactly what it was like on the last day of filming. He did that. And when he was there, he took paint swatches of what it really was. And guess what? It was a full shade darker gray than we used. I almost wanted to repaint, but we didn't. And I'll tell you why. And it photographs the same as the original series. You've seen our series. The reason it photographs the same, and this was good luck on our part, is because back in the 60s, they had to flood so much light in those sets to expose the cameras. You see how I'm sweating, right? There's no air conditioning in this room. We're under the lights. And how many Star Trek episodes did you see them sweating? All the time. Because the lights were so intense to get the film to expose. That's why the gray was so much darker, because they had to pump more light on it. Well, with today's cameras, we don't need to use as much light. So our gray ends up being able to expose at the same level as the original series gray. So, yeah, that's a very interesting observation. This set, by the way, engineering is the largest single set. It's huge. And what's funny is if you walk into it, your first thought is, yeah, it just doesn't seem, I always thought it was bigger. Well, that's because the camera was able to be further away and things just look larger, especially when you're a kid. They seem much larger. And if you put a bunch of reverberation in the voices in here, it creates the illusion that you're in a huge cavernous room.
Another question?
Yes.
Christine from Central Florida.
Christine, hello.
A neighbor.
Thanks for joining us, neighbor.
I think she's throwing down a challenge here.
Uh-oh.
She said, my dad was an executive producer. His name's Pat. And he's throwing down a challenge to Vic to tell him something he doesn't already know.
About Star Trek?
I
guess
you gotta pick it.
Is your dad there, Christine? Christine? Okay, Christine. Here it comes. You ready? Ask your dad what NCC stands for. On the Enterprise, it says NCC 1701. Ask your dad what NCC stands for. That's one of the harder questions. Now, let's take a walk. Are you ready, guys? We're going to book down the corridor one more time so you can walk back in the other direction. It never gets old. It just never gets old. Room / rec rooms / chapel, crew quarters, aux control, weird plan on, hangar deck, Jeffrey's tube. Here's that tri-ladder I was telling you about. Are you guys ready? Now, just like in the original series, the bridge was set off by itself in the far right corner of the soundstage. And it had all kind of space around it because they needed to get all the equipment in there. They needed a crane. Those big shots booming down on the bridge. They used a big giant crane with a guy sitting on top of it with the camera. You gotta have space to do that. So we put our bridge in the back corner of our studio just the way they did. And there aren't many things more exciting than turning this corner and what you're about to see. Dan, take them in there. It doesn't get any better than that, does it, guys? Is that beautiful or what? I mean, now if you look up, you see the lights above, and if you notice there's a grid around the top. The grid is for lighting, because a lot of people think, well, you know, we're just gonna put a light on a stand right there and point it at the guy in the captain's chair. Well, yeah, you could do that, but it's not gonna look like Star Trek, because that's not the way they lit the show. The show was lit with a lighting grid above it, and they would focus the lights. And that's why it had the certain look that it had. You have to have the right angle of lighting to accomplish this. I'm going to let Dan just go ahead, take a little walk around, Dan, and show everybody everything. Up here on this upper level. Oh, by the way, here are the chairs. Check it out. These are Ralph Miller's amazing creation. Now, just like in the original series, if you don't have a lot of money, you don't spend them making 15 chairs. you make 8 or 9, because you're never going to shoot in one set, more than one set at a time. So when you're shooting on the bridge, all the chairs are on the bridge. Yep, keep going, Dan. There's Scotty Station down there, and when you're shooting in the briefing room, you go get the chairs from the bridge and move them to the briefing room. Scotty Station, where our beloved Chris Doohan. If you have not seen Star Trek Continues, it's worth watching just for Chris Doohan. Chris Doohan is the son of Jimmy Doohan, who played Scotty, and he was masterful in his role in filling his dad's shoes. Talk about filling your dad's shoes. He did his dad proud. Engineering?
May I give you one vignette? Your first vignette, when you came to the bridge, you're sitting in the captain's chair, I'm sitting at your feet with the microphone, Chris Doohan is sitting there, and you turn to him and you go, "Are we ready, Mr. Scott?" And my mic is on you, I'm looking at you, but I hear him go, "Oh, do you have to ask, sir?"
Yes.
To this day, the hairs on my neck go up.
Yeah.
And of course, right behind me are our crew members, Sulu and Chekhov, and Mr. Spock is standing next to you, and I'm going, I'm in heaven.
Yeah, it was amazing. Now here, this is the Turbolift Entrance. When we shot our first episode, one of the very first things we shot was me and Scotty and Spock me and Scotty walking out of this door. And Chris Doohan and I were standing in here waiting for these doors to open and walk out. And we're standing there in uniform and we're looking at each other like, can you believe we're actually doing this? We were just kids again. So if you swing around, keep swinging around. Uhura Station, Spock Station, Ensign Leibowitz, Lieutenant Popovich, Chekhov, and of course, Sulu, our dear helmsman. Another cool thing is that now, by the way, can you come up here and tilt down on these rocker switches, Dan? Look, another set of rocker switches, but guess what? These work. This is an actual set of rocker switches from the 60s, and each of them lights up different portions of the panel. And so when we tell Chekhov to do something, he can actually do it. He can actually push the button. You see the scope over here. I have to tell you a funny story. It's a Grant story. Grant was sitting here, and this scope retracts. Look, it retracts down into this console. So he's supposed to push a button. Ooh, those light up. Fun. He would push a button. Ooh, that does the astrogator. Sorry, it's really a lot of fun.
You didn't sit there much.
No, I didn't get to do this as much. So he would push a button, and this thing's supposed to go. Well, we were all set up to shoot it, and he pushes the button, and it goes. It's not working. And so Grant's trying to, and Grant's an engineer, right? A brilliant engineer. So before we know it, he's underneath the console, figuring out what's wrong with the thing. And we actually had one of our production people under there, Scotty Whitehurst, manually pushing the thing up just to get it, because we had to get the shot done. And then you, of course, you put in the sound effect after to make it seem like it's actually motorized. But Grant, it became his personal vision quest. Like, he was obsessed with getting this thing working, and he did. And it worked for us in the future. And this astrogator, swing around over here. If you look here, this middle thing here, keep coming around here. I'm gonna get out of the way. It's called an astrogator. We don't really know exactly where they got it. It lights up here with this button. But when William Smith went to restore the helm nav console in Seattle, this piece was gone. And so Will Smith took our astrogator graphic and he used it on the original. So what we have here is exactly what is up in the original helm console now on display. And here another Ralph Miller masterpiece, this chronograph. It had these rolling numbers in it. And of course they didn't work. So what we would do is we would take a close up of it and we'd give it to our CGI guys and they could make it look like it's turning. Of course, the captain's chair, for those of you that don't know, this chair again was an existing item. This black chair and the wooden arms was a Madison executive office chair. And you can still find them. If you're lucky, you can still find them on eBay. Of course, people now know what they are, so they cost a lot more. But they made little love seats with 2 of these and the single office chair. So all they did was go to a furniture store, bought what looked like kind of a modern looking sleek chair, and then they built this cradle that would go around it. And that became the captain's chair. And look, more of the rocker switches, and there are rocker switches at everybody's station. In fact, Spock's got 2 sets of them.
And the toggle switches work and turn things on. The Spock scope's not on.
Oh, that's right. The Spock scope and everything come on. When we first started in here, the first thing we shot was a vignette. And at that time, none of these lights did what they're doing right now. There were bulbs behind them to light up the graphics, but they didn't do anything. They didn't move. They didn't flash on and off. Well, our wonderful Matt Busey, our cinematographer, he and I came down here a couple of times, and I would paint something or sand something while he built these little boxes with LEDs that he wired up to a USB port so you could program the flashing of these lights. Amazing. Question?
Gene asks, what's the name of the color gray on the walls?
Okay. The gray that we have here, as I mentioned in engineering, is called gravity. However, would you like to know the actual color from the original Star Trek so you can paint your bedroom? Online. Will Smith sent me a picture where he matched up the colors red and black and gray from the original helm console. When you got underneath it and you picked certain things up, you could see the original paint that was protected for years, and it's a paint color that you can go to Lowe's or Home Depot. It's called Online. That is the actual color of the original series gray.
Will, not Will Smith, but Will writes, Vic, what was it like to sit in the captain's chair for the first time?
Well, it was daunting. You know, when you're a little kid, you fantasize about something that you kind of know in the back of your mind you'll never get to do. You know, you imagine flying a fighter jet. You imagine walking on the moon. When you're a kid, you have all these wild, crazy, cool fantasies, fighting a bear or, you know, flying a spaceship. But somewhere in the back of your mind, you know you're never going to really get to do it. The day I dreamed of paying homage to Bill Shatner since I was 12 years old. I always thought it would be so fun. But again, it was one of those things that the little voice in your head says, you're never going to get to do that. Why would you ever do that? Well, as good fortune, providence, whatever, divine intervention, I don't even know, but whatever brought me to the point where I decided I wanted to make an episode like I remember the original series. And we spent so much time focusing on building sets and writing the script and casting and everything, costumes, makeup, all of the things that had to be ready, that I didn't even think about the fact that in 3 weeks' time, I'm going to have to put on a uniform and be this character that I have loved my whole life. So when I stepped onto this bridge and sat in this chair for the first time, it was terrifying because I wanted to pay proper tribute to the series of Star Trek, to Bill Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, George Takei, Michelle, Walter, Jimmy, everybody that made this series so special. It was very scary. And it wasn't until a couple of episodes in and people enjoyed what we were doing that we all kind of slowly settled in to what we were doing. Great question, though, Will. Thank you.
Similar question from Joe. What inspired the wanting to continue the TOS voyages?
Well, you know, for decades, what's this gentleman's name?
His name is Joe.
Joe, for decades, fans have been making Star Trek to varying levels of quality, right? Because they just want to celebrate this show that they loved when they were kids. I have home movies where I would round the kids in the neighborhood up and make them wear uniforms that I made and do these crazy little episodes in the back outside my apartment building. There have been Star Trek productions and fan productions for decades, literally. But if you remember the original series, Captain Kirk used to say at the beginning of every episode, these are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. It's 5-year mission. Well, anybody that knows Star Trek knows that they were canceled abruptly in their 3rd season of television. And then the next time you saw those characters was 10 years later in Star Trek The Motion Picture. And by then, Kirk was an admiral. He left his ship. Why would you think you would have to drag Captain Kirk kicking and screaming off the bridge of his ship because he loved it so much? Why in the world did he accept promotion? Spock had gone back to Vulcan. McCoy had quit the service altogether, went and grew a beard and made mint juleps all day. So it occurred to me that the original series, arguably the most iconic series in television history, never had an ending. It just stopped. And then years later, it showed up 10 years later, and so much had changed. So I thought, wouldn't it be neat to pick it up right where the original was canceled and finish the 5-year mission of the Enterprise? And leave everybody, craft a story that explains to everyone why Kirk is where he is, why Spock is where he is when we see them again in Star Trek The Motion Picture. Now, when we made Pilgrim of Eternity, you guys, none of us had any illusion that we would make a lot of episodes. In fact, as you all know, because I'm sure a lot of you are out there, Star Trek fans are very opinionated. They're very particular. And as we were, we didn't know how what we did was going to be received. So we focused on making one episode as best we could, and it was a sequel to the original series episode, Who Mourns for Adonais. We got Michael Forrest to come back and reprise his role as the Greek god Apollo. And if we never did another thing, being able to make a Star Trek episode the way we remembered it, with Mike Forrest as Apollo, would have been a beautiful thing. But after we finished it and we put it out, people loved it. You guys enjoyed what we did. We were so blown away, grateful and humbled. And so we started to make more episodes. And we were able to make 11, and we were able to do what we wanted to do, finish the original series of Star Trek.
2 memories about that. Michael Forrest and his wife in the death scene right behind you.
Yep, on that floor.
And him in his toga watching the original episode in the hallway waiting for a transporter scene shot, saying he hadn't seen it in decades. And we're sitting there and watching Apollo watch himself from decades ago.
And you know, he's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. He and his wife, Diana, when I asked Mike to reprise his role, and I told him we have a redemption story for Apollo, his wife got on the phone and she said, "What role can I play?" And I'm like, "Well, Diana, we don't have any role." "Well, could you write one for me?" So we completely reworked the story, which you guys now saw, where when Apollo appears on the ship, he appears with the Greek god Athena, and she dies in his arms. And that was played by his wife. And she made it even more special.
Danny asks.
Danny,
how did you match the lighting so exactly?
Well, Danny, I have to give credit where credit is due, and that is our amazing Matt Busey. Matt Busey and I studied the original series. We studied the lighting. And it was very theatrical. If you watch TV shows nowadays, it's very natural. It's very, kind of looks just like if you just walk in a room. But back then, they called them teleplays for a reason. because they were like stage plays, and they were lit like stage plays. There was a high key light that hit the actor's face from one side, and then there was a smaller fill light that would just fill in one side a little bit, but the key light was stronger, so it gave dimension to the face. And then there would be a backlight or a hair light or a rim light, what they would call it. And it would be behind the actor, and it would serve to kind of rim the actor so that he didn't just blend in flat into the background. Well, Jerry Finnerman, who was the cinematographer on the original series of Star Trek, he came up with a lot of the dramatic, embracing the shadows kind of lighting that Star Trek was known for. And Matt Busey's job was to imitate it. And I think he did a pretty good job of it. Question?
Erica asks.
Hey, Erica.
Which was the most fun set to build?
You know, the bridge was in large part built before by another fan group, and we partnered with them, and then we ended up replacing some of the pieces. We put the lights and the moving lights in. We actually built this station to add on. But after we got the bridge moved over, probably, that's a tough question. Wow, Erica. You know what? It would have to be engineering. And I'll tell you why. Because it was monstrous and no one had ever done it. No fan production before us had built engineering. It was just, it wasn't practical. You needed so much space, and it was just too big of a job. And so when we built that and putting up some of those huge giant walls, I mean, I thought we were going to get crushed by a couple of them trying to hoist them up and then drill big bolts into the ground to hold them up. Engineering. Because we'd seen a lot of the other sets. Other people had built bridges before. Other people have built transporter rooms and maybe even sick bays, but nobody had built engineering. So when we built that and were able to stand back and see it finished, that was an incredible thrill.
Dennis from Jimmy's show says,
hello, Dennis and Jimmy.
Asked, has anyone broken a piece of the set during filming?
All the time. All the time. See, it's built to look cool. It's built to look good. But imagine like if the ship is being hit, right? And you're doing the whole flying around. Well, if you fly into these railing pieces strong enough, they'll give way. Yes, Uhura, Spock has broken things. I'm sure I've broken things. Yes, in fact, there's a nice crack in the wall in sickbay from my head when Spock threw me against the wall in episode 6. And we even left it there because, you know.
And when Kim was zapped by Apollo's wife's, we had 4 people standing to grab her,
yes,
and she had to make sure she cleared the railing right and ended up with the guys.
Kim Stinger stood at her station, and then she got electrocuted in our first episode, and she was supposed to fling herself back and fly over this railing. And of course, we didn't want her to get hurt, so we had 4 or 5 guys standing here making a cradle for her, and she just had to trust them.
And she couldn't touch the railing or it would break.
Right. Yes. It was like
another actress actually
hurl yourself over the railing.
Another actress actually did crack a wall in a fight scene, but it was a minor crack. That's how much she threw herself into that role, and I'm not being sarcastic.
Yes, there are plenty of little things that have broken here and there. Plenty.
You know,
we are live back at the studio.
I bet you're wondering why the camera went down. You know why? Because it's so hot in here. The phone overheated. So we put one phone in the refrigerator while we got another phone and hooked it up super fast. But there have been a lot of questions that I want to answer real quick before we finish up. We've only got a few minutes left. So some of the questions have asked what other productions have filmed here. Well, Starship Farragut has filmed here. Star Trek Continues filmed here. Starship Republic.
Republic did not film here. but
Give me some.
Dreadnought Dominion.
Dreadnought Dominion filmed here. We've had weddings and we've had school groups and music videos shot here.
We have a series now called Tales from the Neutral Zone.
Tales from the Neutral Zone, a series of shorts from this. And you know what the beautiful thing about that is? There are Star Trek fans everywhere who would love to shoot their own Star Trek fan film, right? But they don't have the money to rent a building or to build sets. Well, guess what? They've already been built. So all you need to do is contact Neutral Zone Studios and make arrangements with Ray Tessie, who is the master of all of this, to shoot your own Star Trek production here. And that's a good segue. You guys, Neutral Zone Studios owns this facility. And while nobody is interested in making a profit at all, what they are interested in is continuing to make this available to fans. Can you imagine if this had to be torn down? I mean, I can't even imagine. There are only a couple places on the entire planet where something like this exists. And it's available for any Star Trek fan to come and see. In Kingsland, Georgia, half an hour from Jacksonville Airport. You fly right in, boom, you're here in no time flat. It's a wonderful little town. We spent so much time here, and I have such a love for this town. But the one thing that does cost money is rent. The people that own the building still need rent for the building, and utilities need to be paid. It's not a ton, but it comes every month. So I would like to ask you guys to go to Neutral Zone Studios and donate. I am absolutely sure that there are hundreds and hundreds of people out there that love the original series and that would love to help keep this set up and standing right where it was built. And you can. Go to StarTrekContinues.com. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Go to the Neutral Zone, NeutralZoneStudios.com. I think we even have a link there too. But go to NeutralZoneStudios.com. There's a Patreon set up. There are multiple ways that you can donate. For all we know, there's a multimillionaire out there who was a Star Trek fan when he was a little boy, and it would be chump change for him to sponsor the bills for this studio for a whole year. I believe that there are people out there like that. There are good people out there who do not want to see this gone. So please go to the website. I don't know if it's on the screen or not, but go to the website NeutralZoneStudios.com and look for ways that you can contribute. I can speak for Ray and the rest of the Neutral Zone staff when I tell you they would be forever grateful, and every true Star Trek fan would be grateful for anyone that can help keep these sets alive. I think we're going to wrap it up. Are we wrapping it up?
We have 10 minutes if you want to ask a few more questions.
Any other questions before we take you off the bridge?
Let me throw a quickie. You know who else sat in that chair? Nichelle Nichols, when she did a small documentary. And we got chills when she sat at her old station, and then she sat there and said, Bill Shatner had his time, now it's my turn.
I can imagine. Question online?
John says, was an item used in TOS used in STC?
There was one item that I can think of that actually was in the original series that we had on our show, and it was one of the little data tapes. Larry Nemechek, our resident Star Trek expert, Larry Nemechek, he played McCoy in the first 2 episodes of Star Trek Continues, and he continued as part of our production team and expert on all things Star Trek. Kind of a what's the word I'm looking for? Consultant, an expert consultant about Star Trek. And he had one of the original data tapes like these that was from the original series. Now we had dozens of them that we had cut and made, but this one was on the original sets. And so in our first episode, Larry brought it out and he put it on one. I don't remember whether he put it on the captain's chair or whether it was in sickbay, but yes, there was a small piece of the original series on our sets.
Jeff writes, have you ever walked into the turbolift doors that didn't open quickly enough?
Have I? No. Has someone else? Yes. In fact, we have bloopers. If you go to StarTrekContinues.com, you'll see our episodes, but you can also watch our bloopers. And there were several times when people bumped into the doors. There was when they were leaving a room, and maybe you didn't even see them, but you heard them run into them. Again, if you don't call doors in time, then our door expert Royal, who's hiding behind the set, doesn't know. Don't show him yet, Dan. Don't show him. We're gonna show him at the end.
You came close.
He won't know to open them.
You came close. In your argument with Olani, you turned and you marched to that door, and I'll swear it opened just in front of your nose.
And if you've seen the original Star Trek bloopers, they ran into the doors all the time because somebody didn't get the cue quick enough. Question?
Exactly. Yep. Tim writes, did all of the main viewer screens have to be added later?
Yes, spin around if you would. I'm glad you even said that. That's a great question. What was his name?
That was Tim.
Tim, notice the green screen right there. When we shot our series, there was no green screen there. There was nothing there. Because once again, you've got to have some place to shoot into the set. So just like in the original series, this would not normally be here. This was all wide open, so you could shoot into the bridge from back here. The only reason they would ever roll in the view screen was if they were going to do a reverse shot where you were seeing what was on the view screen. Well, we had intended to build the view screen. We meant to. We wanted to. But as we started our series, we needed to build Lolani's quarters. And then we needed to build aux control. And then we needed to build engineering. And then we needed to build the council chambers. And then we needed to build, on and on it went, the planet, the courtroom, Admiral's quarters, the Chalcidian chamber. And so our dear Mark Bell, who is the special effects genius behind the ship and a lot of our effect shots, he created a CGI view screen that whenever we would talk about going to the screen and see what's on screen, that was CGI. And he made it so photorealistic. In fact, one time, if you watch, let's see, I know it's in episode 9, there's a shot from back here where you're looking over my shoulder and over Grant and Wyatt's shoulders to the view screen. Mark Bell created that entire front section of the bridge and melded it right in seamlessly with the physical bridge to get that shot. Question?
So Nick, who is from Thirsty for Chicken.
Ah, Nick!
You probably met Nick.
Yes, I love Nick, and he's from my hometown in Pennsylvania. Okay. And you gotta love that screen name, right? Thirsty for Chicken.
He asks a question and then makes a statement.
Okay.
So the question is, he says, first, I'd like to know, since you're friends, how easy it was to convince Habercorn to join the show and if he had a pre-existing fandom. His statement is, the other thing I wanted to let Vic know is that yesterday was the greatest day of my life. I don't want to embarrass you. And I wanted to thank him for every moment of making that happen. He's a great man.
Thank you, Nick. Nick came to the signing in Jacksonville yesterday. Thank you for that, Nick. You're so kind. It was a great pleasure to see you and your mom yesterday. In answer to your question, Nick, Todd and I are great friends from voice acting and productions we've worked on over the years. And when I was trying to decide who I wanted to cast for Star Trek Continues, I knew that I wanted to get good actors, because one of the most difficult challenges for fan films is the acting. Anybody can go to Lowe's and build a set. Anybody can go to Home Depot and buy paint and wood and build a set. But the set's only a backdrop. You got to tell a story. And if you're going to tell a story, you have to have a compelling script, and then you have to have actors who can do that. So I didn't want to just get people that kind of looked like the guys. I wanted to get actors. So I asked Todd. Todd was a little young for Spock, but Todd's a great actor, and he was a good friend. And so I asked him if he'd be interested, and Todd not only was interested, but he did an audition for Spock where he green screened himself into an original series episode, because Todd's awesome like that. He's so creative. Chuck Huber, amazing actor. I asked him to play Dr. McCoy. Chris Dewitt was born to play his dad's role. Wyatt Lenhart was an anime fan that I met at a convention who was a big Star Trek fan, and he had a lot of acting experience. Asked him to play Chekhov. And of course, Grant was amazing as Sulu. Yes, everybody that we brought into our series did an absolutely masterful job.
Similar question. Joshua asks, how did you get people like Amy Rydell, Aaron Gray, Marina Sirtis, etc., involved in the production?
Well, most of our guest stars were friends that I made during convention appearances. I would do a MegaCon in Orlando, or a Dragon Con, or Chicago Comic-Con, or Tampa Bay, or whatever. And there were other actors there, like Marina Sirtis, like John Delancey, like Lou Ferrigno, like Aaron Gray, like Colin Baker, like Gigi Edgley. These were all people that I met, Ann Lockhart. These are people that I met doing these conventions. And we would sit in the green room and chat, and we became friends. And then as we were writing a new script, I thought, oh, you know who would be great for this role? And I would call John Delancey and say, John, we've got this amazing script about this black and white planet. Would you be interested in playing the council leader? And he said, well, send me the script. And I sent it to him. He loved it, and he did it. A lot of these actors who are celebrities now were kids when Star Trek came out. And there was something that resonated in them about being able to play Star Trek. They became kids again, like we all did. Amy Rydell, we found her on Facebook, and she was the daughter of Joanne Linville, who played the Romulan commander in the original Enterprise incident episode. So she was perfect to play the role.
She went to her mother, she learned the accent, she learned the makeup.
Yeah.
And what was it like when she walked on set?
Makeup and uniform, it was breathtaking. She looked like she'd stepped out of the original episode.
So my question to you was, what was it like for you to work opposite legends? The Michael Forrests of this world, the Aaron Grays.
Humbling. I mean, these are people that I was a fan when I was living. It was humbling. There's no other word for it. You have such a sense of gratitude that you got to do something like this. Everybody, I think I can speak for everybody, whether it was Lisa Hansel and Tim Vidito, who ran our makeup department, or Ginger Holly and Hannah Barucki and the people in wardrobe, or whether it was Ralph Miller and Dan Scanlan, Michelle, who ran Siles, who ran audio, whether it was Dave Arland and Will Smith and Greg Dykstra and Jay Pennington, who did props and sets, or Sam and Royal and Matt Busey and his camera team. Everybody that was a part of it knew that they were a part of something special. Nobody cared that they weren't making any money, because we felt like we were part of something very special. And so it was humbling. Every moment of it was humbling.
And we're out of time.
So we're out of time.
Vic,
So
we've got some questions that were in the chat, if you don't mind answering. We had a couple questions on the video chat.
Well, we'll take two more quick questions.
Okay.
And then we're going to take you off the bridge the same way that we went off the bridge. How about that?
So Kim Johnson wants to know, how did you find the studio, and what made you decide to film here?
Okay, Kim, good question. About 8 years ago, I helped Starship Farragut shoot an episode of theirs. And at the time, Starship Farragut had a small building about 7 miles that way in St. Mary's, Georgia. And in that building, they had a portion of the bridge that they had built, and they had a scaled down transporter room and a captain's quarters. But that was about all they could fit in the building. So I helped them shoot an episode. And what I asked for in terms of payment was to shoot my own thing. I wanted to play Captain Kirk, wanted to fulfill my childhood dream. And just as we were finishing up, they told me that I could shoot there. And just as we were finishing up, the man that owned that building rented the building to someone else, and he said, I'm going to be able to make some money now renting the building, so I'm sorry, you guys are going to have to leave. So they were going to have to vacate that building. And they called me and they said, listen, we're going to have to take it all down and put it in storage or move it somewhere. And I said, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we rent a larger building somewhere nearby, and you move the bridge over, and then we'll build everything else. And they agreed. And the same guy that owned the building in St. Mary's owned this building, 18,000 square feet. And they moved the bridge down here and reassembled it. And then we took chalk and gaffer's tape and laid out on this. This was a slab of concrete when we moved here, and laid out the corridor, and then the parameters of the briefing room and the transporter room, and just started building. And we shot our first episode in January, as I said earlier, of 2013. That's how we ended up here. I tell you what, it was a godsend, Kimberly, because you could never do this in a major city. It would be cost prohibitive. You could never rent a building 18,000 square feet in Chicago, or heaven forbid, LA, or even Houston or Dallas. Big cities would charge money that we simply didn't have. But down here, this wonderful little town, we were able to do everything. We made great friends at the restaurants in town and the hotels in town. Everybody knew when the Star Trek gang was in town. And this became our wonderful little home. And we would fly down here 2 times a year for 8 or 10 days and shoot an episode.
Ashley, I have a question from Alan.
Alan
says, what was the most fun or rewarding episode? What's your favorite?
Well, Alan, that would be like asking you who your favorite child is if you have kids. It's hard because so much was put into every single one of them. I mean, I know for myself, and then James Kerwin and other people that wrote for our show and directed for our show, we slayed over those scripts. We beat them up the same way Gene Roddenberry beat up the scripts that were submitted to him. And so much effort was put into every episode. I would be hard pressed to pick a favorite of mine. I will tell you that I have a real special love for the White Iris. I have a very, very special love for our 4th episode, because that was an episode that showed the humanity of Captain Kirk. It showed that he was just like you and I. We all have regrets and shame and mistakes that we made and things we wish we could make right if we had the chance to go back and get some closure about something. And that episode was precisely about that. That Kirk had a lot of open-ended guilt and pain in his past that he needed to deal with before he could move forward. So the White Iris was one of my favorites, but every one of them had something special. And I don't know that I could just pick just one. One more question, and then we'll take us out in Star Trek style.
Take us out in Star Trek style. Let's see. Oh, a friend of ours, Skip. How about the story of finding Asia DeMarco spot on for Barbara Lynn?
Okay, if you'd seen our 3rd episode, which was the continuation of the Mirror Mirror episode, I was looking for somebody that could play Barbara Luna. That was Kirk's cabin woman, Marlena Moreau. We looked everywhere. We did casting calls in LA, and she has such an exotic, unique look. I think Barbara herself is like part Filipino and part, I don't even know, but such a beautiful mix. We couldn't find anybody. But we had to keep the schedule rolling forward, so I just had to make this call, and I cast someone, and she was going to be great. She was already learning her lines. And one day, Lisa Hansel and I met at a makeup store in Burbank called Nigel's, because we were going to get Spock's goatee. We're going to buy the hair for some toupees and Spock's goatee, and Lisa and I were inside Nigel. And I just went with her just to help, pick the goatee. And I look over in the store, and there's this woman checking out at the counter. And I was like, Lisa. She looked just like Barbara Lynn. And I did probably the creepiest thing I've ever done. I said, Lisa, come with me so she doesn't think I'm a creep. And I walked up to her and I said, I'm so sorry. We're in Hollywood and I'm about to say, are you an actress? Notice I didn't say, you know, do you like Star Trek or are you a Star Trek? I said, are you an actress? Because I knew she needed to be able to act, to play that role. And as luck would have it, she said, yes, I am. Lisa was standing beside me. So we went outside. She gave me her number. I called her that afternoon and I told her what we were doing and she agreed. And it was that kind of good fortune, dare I say divine providence, that followed Star Trek Continues in a lot of things we did. Asia was just one of hundreds of things, good things, that happened to bring these episodes to life. And I hope if you haven't seen all of our episodes or the other fan productions that have been shot here, I hope you'll check them out. They're all for free. StarTrekContinues.com. Go to NeutralZoneStudios.com and help them keep this building standing and help them pay the utilities here so that Ray can continue to open it up for other fans to enjoy, for people that love Star Trek to come and walk through, just like you did tonight by camera. How much cooler would it be to actually be here in person? Okay, we're gonna leave the same way Captain Kirk would leave. I'm gonna turn to go to the turbo lift behind me. And when I turn my back on the camera, you're gonna hear me say the word to cue Royal to open the doors when I know that I'm about to approach. And through the magic of sound and video, you add the sound effect and it looks like they just opened when I approached. Okay? Here we go. Whoops. Doors. And then you would come in here and I will say, thank you guys for joining us. Much love to Grant Imahara again, who was such a wonderful part of our series. And this whole evening was dedicated to him. And thank you guys so much for joining us. Live long and prosper, and doors.